What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years of experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. Today, we're continuing this conservation project for this copy of Flash number 139, the first appearance of the Reverse Flash from September 1963, written by John Broome with pencils by Carmine Infantino. This is a big Silver Age key from the Flash's Rogues Gallery. This copy belongs to a friend of the channel. In episode 1, we did a complete walkthrough and assessment of this book and came up with a conservation game plan. In episode 2, we disassembled the book, dry cleaned it, and prepared for wet cleaning. In episode 3, we completed all of our wet work for this cover: aqueous cleaning, deacidification, and resizing baths, as well as tear seals with Japanese paper and wheat paste. While the deacidification, resizing, and tear seals were effective, unfortunately we had some significant ink loss on the cover. In episode 4, we demonstrated a quick and easy way to effectively wash and deacidify one of the interior wraps, and completed a tear seal around the bottom staple, which was completely torn out. We decided to prophylactically treat the upper staple hole as well, because every page of this book already has archival tear seals with Japanese paper, so treating the top staple will not affect the grade of the book at all, but will reinforce the paper where it needs it the most. If you want to watch any of those videos before you watch this one, follow the link over to the playlist I've created. Today, we're going to trim all of the interior wraps of excess tengujo paper, reassemble the wraps, replace the staples, and refold everything into a saddle-stitched comic book again. Then we'll finish off by putting the book in the heated press. But before we get to our main topic, I want to remind everyone that we are closing in on our goal of 1,000 subscribers. And in appreciation of subscribers new and old, I'm giving away this copy of Star Wars No. 1 in CGC 7.5 with white pages. This is the first appearance of Luke, Leia, Vader, R2, 3PO, and a host of others, as well as the first cover appearance of Obi-Wan and Han Solo. It was published 6 weeks before A New Hope opened in theaters in 1977. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and follow the link over to that video to comment there for a chance to win. Alright, let's get to work. Here is the whole stack. I have a clear ruler and a number 3 scalpel handle with a number 11 blade. Make sure you have a fresh blade. They're inexpensive. And tengujo fibers, the paper fibers are strong. You do not want to tear them. You want to cut them cleanly. I have my magnifying light ring in front of me, so I'm seeing this at 10x with very intense light. And I take my time. The clear ruler is critical to make sure you're lining up exactly on the edge. And it's as simple as that. Do not try to do this just with your naked eye or in poor lighting. You will cut the edge of the actual comic book, and obviously that's a huge no-no. So I have the stack off to the left. I'm just going to take each page in turn and trim it. I know I said every single page of this needed some tear seals. It turns out actually the page immediately before the centerfold, I think it's the 11th wrap, didn't. So there was one page that didn't. I still wet cleaned it just so that it would have the same deacidification and the same color quality as the other pages. And then of course the centerfold needed only the staple holes reinforced, so it doesn't need to be trimmed because it doesn't have any tengujo paper hanging off the edge. So I think that means we have 10 total wraps to trim. I had already trimmed the cover to show you the results in the previous video. Definitely want to, I already said it, but I can't emphasize enough. Replace your scalpel blade if you need to. You do not want to have to use a lot of force when you're doing this. If you're pushing really hard, you're doing it wrong. Your blade's too dull, just get a new blade. Push hard on that ruler, the straight edge, so that you can protect your paper, and then pull gently with the blade across those tengujo fibers and they'll just float away. Right, now I have the entire stack and I have them all in order, and we're going to be reinserting the staples. So it's important, obviously, to get this correct. You need to get this whole stack leveled. I use that old technique we learned in elementary school to just level all the pages. Now, the book is cut when it's folded, so these wraps are not the exact same dimension width-wise. They are height-wise. So you're going to be taking that into account. You don't want to necessarily do that same technique of stacking on the left or right. I'm using a pin, and I'm reinserting the pin in the staple holes to reestablish the holes. They sort of close up a little bit when you wet clean the pages. And it's very important to do this from this orientation. You want to put the hole in the same orientation that the original staple prong would have gone through the paper and created the hole. It's a little bit easier to do from the centerfold out, generally, because it's easier to see those holes in the centerfold. But when you do that, you create little tiny flaps of paper that are actually going to fight you when you're trying to insert the staple. The flaps are oriented in the wrong direction, and the staple arm will sort of catch on them and try to refold them back through the hole and provide some resistance. Here are our staples. They're beautiful, by the way. No rust. Beautiful patina, strong staples. So this book had that going for it. Of course, I maintained both which staple is top, which one's bottom, but also the orientation, which arm is the top arm, which arm is the bottom arm. Now I'm going to pinch these pages because I have them now really with the orientation I want. So that left hand is grabbing, but with my right palm I was pushing down to maintain that orientation. And I've said before, this is never elegant. This one I'll struggle with a little bit, but actually goes in about as well as it happens. And if anybody out there knows a better technique for this, please let me know, because that's about as good as it gets right there. Typically I struggle more than that, and it takes longer to reinsert a staple. Now I'm going to retrieve the other staple here, again noting the orientation, and if I need both hands, I'll set it with the correct orientation on the book so it can't be mistaken. And now before putting this top one in, I'm going to recheck that everything is oriented properly. Again, the critical edges are top and bottom edges. There's a little bit of play horizontally with the book, vertical here, since I have the book turned 90 degrees to the way you would read it. And now I'm just going to try to find those staple holes here. These staples were not perfectly in the crease. That is, they were not perfectly at the outside edge of the book. They're a little bit on the top of the book as you view it. And I found for some reason that does make this more difficult. When the staples are right in the spine, it's just easier to find the through holes. With this one, what I have to do is take a little peek. So I'm going to try to keep, again, my right palm is pressing the pages to try to keep the orientation. One thing that helps here is I have a really strong light, and as you lower the page, you can look between the cover and the rest of the wraps. You can actually see from those little pinholes in the cover where the light is falling how well everything is aligned. And you see I shift the cover just a little bit here when I lay it back down in hopes of aligning the cover with the rest of the wraps and finding those staple holes. This paper is very fragile, so everything you're doing here is very gentle. I could just force staples through this paper with my bare hands. It's old paper, right? And it was newsprint to start. But of course, that's not going to give you the result you want. So it's tedious, and you just need to take your time and continue trying and trying. I'm pushing very gently with the staple into the paper. You can see sometimes small indentations from the staple that you're trying to insert. And so sometimes it's possible when you take a peek, you'll see the little indentations for where you're attempting to push the staple through unsuccessfully, and you can see where they are relative to the holes that you want to hit. And then you can shift the cover over a little bit to hit them. And that's what I did here. I was trying to reinsert the staple just a little bit closer to the spine than where the native holes were, so I had to shift the cover over just a little bit. Now I have both staples in. Obviously I don't want them to come out, so I'm going to flip the book very carefully. And I'm going to just pull those staples up straight so that the arms are vertical. And then again, this is very important, I'm going to re-level all the pages. I want everything to be very, very straight before I pinch these arms back down and kind of lock the paper in place. So this is a tool, it's just a flat piece of Delrin that I machined and put a small hole in that allows me to fix the paper and the staple in place so nothing moves while I bend that arm down. And I just bend it down with my finger. As I'm bending it down, I look at the paper, just like I'm honing in on a target. I look to see where the indentations in the paper are from where the arm used to lie, in this case for the last 60 years. And I aim the staple arm at that mark, and I bend it down right into the same place to the extent possible. Again, remember, I'm looking at it with 10x magnification and very good lighting. It doesn't hurt to level the pages again before doing this step. This is the capable staple tool from Rick Morgan over at Immaculate Comics. Has a little groove in it, and that groove allows me to do the same thing that my Delrin block does when both the arms are straight up. It allows me to stabilize the book relative to that one staple arm that's already down, and then I can aim the other staple arm right into the spot where it originally was. Now these are both a little bit loose at the moment, and I'm going to come back and just tighten them up now that I'm happy with the orientation of the pages. And these will then pinch all the pages together nicely, and we shouldn't have any movement of the pages once I've done that. There you have it. Staples back in. Again, a little bit tedious, a little bit awkward, but that's the best method I know. I would love for somebody to show me a better way. But here's the book. Now, obviously, everything's been pressed flat, so we don't have a great spine at the moment. We've got to rebend the book, and we want to obviously make sure we're bending it in the right spot. So I have my tack iron here. I like to set it about 2.5. For the work we're doing, we're just going to be kind of gently touching the paper. We're going to be moving it around. That's the right temperature. I have a backer board where I've cut the staple holes out, and you can see here the crease is not in exactly the same spot as the staples. They're not aligned perfectly with the crease. What I'm going to do here is check front and back that all of the pages are aligning straight, that the cover is oriented so that it has the same amount of either overlap or falls short the same amount on both the front and back. What I'm showing here is how I normally do this. You've heard me mention before that I usually just hang it off the front edge of my mat, of my workbench in my studio. So I'm showing you that now. This is how I normally do it. You can't see the edge, but I'm focused very much on the reading edge of the book and making sure that it's flat and even. And I'm just going to very gently, this is essentially just the weight of the tack iron. I'm just barely touching the paper, and I just want to coax it gently down into place before I put any pressure or real heat. I'm going to flip it over and make sure that the orientation's still correct here on the back as well, and then I'm going to do the same. Just gently coax a crease into the paper. This paper's still a little bit wetter than it would be in my room. Although it's been in a cold press, it's just a tiny bit damper than my room is. So it takes the crease well, and it takes the heat well. Now, I showed you that just to show you how I normally do it. But so that you can see how I'm holding the page, I brought this block of granite back over. And there you can see now my left hand. That's how I hold the book. I'm actually pinching and pulling the pages toward the palm of my hand with my left hand. And then once I get it locked in, I can just press down to keep everything oriented right where I want it. And now I'm going to go back and forth. This is a little bit more pressure than just the weight of the tack iron. I'm actually pushing into the paper a little bit here. Still not a lot of pressure. I don't want to do that until I double check the other side once more. And so this is kind of an iterative process where I'm going to press one side a little bit further, get it a little bit closer to flat. Then I'm going to flip it, double check, and I'm going to go back and forth like that until I'm satisfied that I have the crease where it needs to be, and the book will stay there. We want the crease already pretty well established before we put the book in the seal press for the final press, the dry mount or laminating press, or a t-shirt press if that's what you have. I've found both work pretty well. I get satisfactory results from both. In fact, the t-shirt press is much easier to adjust for thickness of the book. So if you're somebody who only has space for one press and you want to be able to go back and forth from golden age books to modern books to square bound books, just get yourself a t-shirt press, because it's kind of a headache to adjust the thickness of the seal presses, at least the older models that I have. Right. So now we have a nice crease. We have a book that's pretty much back together. I'm just going to put a little bit more heat into it from this side to make sure that the crease is there and it's not going to go anywhere while I prep the book and the press for the final press. but it looks like a comic book again. So again, now here, I'm putting a little bit more pressure, but I move the tack iron around pretty quickly, so I'm not putting an appreciable amount of heat into the book in any one spot because I don't stay very long. So the book is ready for final press. Here's my seal press. I have 2 magazine backer boards and a piece of SRP on the bottom. I have a 1/8 inch aluminum plate, a sheet of SRP, and 2 more backer boards on top. I did not further buffer the book in any way, so literally just that backer board in the middle of the book is the only buffering inside the book. These pages are already super flat. The purpose of this final press is to just finish the book off and give it a nice uniform look and to finish off that crease or fold at the spine. The final press will be 155 degrees for 15 minutes, which should be sufficient to finish this project. But if it needs a second press, I'll do that before the final episode. We're just about wrapped up all the steps that we set out to do in this game plan for this book. And I sincerely appreciate you joining me today to continue this conservation project for the first appearance of the Reverse Flash. Next episode will be our last in this series. We'll review all of the work done on this book and the final results. I've been talking to many people both here on YouTube and in our comic book conservation community Facebook group about the cause of our ink loss during the wet cleaning, deacidification, and resizing of the cover. And we'll present what I think went wrong as well, so you won't want to miss the final episode. Most of the materials I use for conservation projects are available from Amazon in the affiliate links in the description if you need any of them for your own conservation projects. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until next time, take care of one another.